Today's topic, dinosaurs. What more do you need to know? Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. Ever since they were discovered, dinosaurs have fascinated us, especially children. Over the years, dinosaurs have become an evergreen subject in toy manufacturing, with almost every major and minor toy company creating dinosaur toys at one point or another. Thousands of dinosaur toys exist in every conceivable shape, size, and color. In this video, we're going to look at 5 action figure lines that at one point or another decided to add dinosaurs into the mix. We won't be talking about toy lines where dinosaurs are the main draw, such as Jurassic Park, Dino Riders, Dino Saucers, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Extreme Dinosaurs. We won't be talking about any of those. Nor will we be discussing any toy lines that had dinosaurs baked into the initial premise, such as Beast Wars Transformers and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. These will all be toy lines that started out as something else and then just suddenly decided to add dinosaurs. And we're going to start off with some low-hanging fruit, the most obvious choice for this topic. Transformers! In 1984, Hasbro introduced the Transformers, a toy series adapted from 2 different Japanese toy lines made by Takara, Diaclone and Microchange. Hasbro got help in establishing the Transformers mythology from Marvel Comics and writer Bob Budiansky. The original idea of Transformers is that they were robots in disguise. These sentient mechanical beings from outer space could transform into everyday items that were familiar to Earthlings, like cars, trucks, jets, a boombox, cassette tapes, and of course the infamous Megatron handgun. But very quickly the idea of disguise was tossed out the window, with the introduction in 1985 of the first creature-based Transformers, the evil Insecticons, and the heroic Dinobots. The original Dinobot toys were adapted from the toy line Diaclone, where in Japan they were sold as Dinosaur Robo. Like all the other toys in the Diaclone line, they were not conceived as autonomous beings, but as piloted mecha. So their names and personalities were created by writer Bob Budiansky. The Dinobots received 2 origins in Generation 1, one in the cartoon and one in the Marvel comic, and they were very different. In the cartoon, after having discovered dinosaur fossils around their volcano headquarters, the Autobots just decided that, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had robotic dinosaurs? And they made some. It was very early on in the mythology at that point, so the creation of the Dinobots goes against anything that was established later on how Transformers are actually created. In the Marvel comic, their origin was a little more fleshed out. The Autobots that would become the Dinobots were part of the crew of the Ark that crash-landed on Earth. At some point in the past, the Decepticon Shockwave came to Earth with nefarious intentions, specifically showing up on a place on Earth called the Savage Land, which was Marvel Comics' version of a Lost World setting where dinosaurs still existed. Sensing the danger, the Ark revived 5 Autobot warriors and gave them new alt modes in the form of the indigenous life of the Savage Land, dinosaurs. After defeating Shockwave, the Dinobots wound up in suspended animation inside a tar pit, where they remained until the 1980s. The Dinobots quickly became some of the most popular characters in the Transformers line. In the 1986 Transformers movie, where many of the original characters were killed off, not only did the Dinobots have a major part in that film, but they also survived till the end, which at that time was a huge accomplishment. Because of their popularity, the Dinobots have appeared in almost every major iteration of Transformers since Generation 1. And although different members have come and gone over the years, most of the time it's the original 5 Dinobots that get the spotlight. Grimlock the Tyrannosaurus, the brash, arrogant, boastful, and insubordinate leader of the Dinobots. Slug the Triceratops, the surly and bad-tempered Dinobot flamethrower. Sludge the Brontosaurus, the dim-witted but powerful Dinobot jungle warrior. Snarl the Stegosaurus, the sullen and uncooperative Dinobot desert warrior. And Swoop the Pteranodon, the good-natured Dinobot bombardier. While we're here, let's talk about the name of our favorite bad-tempered Triceratops. Originally in Generation 1, the Triceratops was named Slag, that word being used to describe the byproducts left when metal is melted down. With him being the Dinobot flamethrower, his breath was hot enough to melt down Decepticons until there was nothing left but slag. Hasbro discovered that that word was used as a derogatory slur over in the UK, so they decided not to use it anymore. They experimented with different names for the Triceratops over the years. In Transformers Animated, when only 3 of the Dinobots appeared, they borrowed the name from the Stegosaurus and called him Snarl. And when new Dinobots appeared in the Beast Machines toy line, they gave the Triceratops the very clunky name of Tricerodon. But at some point, Hasbro decided to just simply change his name to Slug, and that's the name that has stuck. Unlike many of the other subgroups in Generation 1, like the Constructicons, Aerial Bots, and Predacons, the Dinobots were not originally created with the ability to combine. That changed in 2017 with the release of new versions of the original 5 Dinobots in the Power of the Primes toy line. These 5 Dinobots now have the ability to combine into a giant called Volcanicus. In my opinion, the Dinobots will always remain some of the most popular Transformers, and we will most definitely see new versions of them as long as the Transformers toy line exists. The next dinosaur toy we'll look at is an old ally of the Transformers and Hasbro's other big toy line from the 1980s. In 1982, Hasbro brought back their G.I. Joe brand, reimagined and reinvented as G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero. With a mythology created by Marvel Comics writer Larry Hama, this new iteration of G.I. Joe featured a diverse team of special operatives who fought against the terrorist organization Cobra. For the most part, G.I. Joe kept its grounded, slightly sci-fi approach to military adventure, while jumping the shark on a few notable occasions. But in 1993, they introduced dinosaurs into the mix with the release of the Toys R Us exclusive Dino Hunters set. The Dino Hunters playset featured 2 figures, Ambush and Lowlight, who were both repaints of previously released figures. The vehicle in the set was also a repaint of an older toy, the Desert Fox from 1988. And then there's the dinosaur. Where did the dinosaur come from? Well, the blurb on the box tells us that somehow Cobra Commander discovered dinosaurs on Cobra Island and decided to weaponize them. That's it. That's the entire backstory. Not much thought put into it, but again, this was probably done to quickly capitalize on the popularity of Jurassic Park. Now, the dinosaur in the set is the interesting part. When researching this set, I found a post from a user on Reddit who claims to have a prototype version of the packaging for the Dino Hunter set, and it shows a completely different dinosaur than the one that was released. The dinosaur that actually came with the set looked very familiar to those of us who knew about Imperial toys. The dinosaur you're seeing on screen right now is not the dinosaur from the Dino Hunter set. This T-Rex was released by Imperial Toys as part of a dinosaur toy line in the early 1980s. This dinosaur is obviously the basis for the one that was released in the G.I. Joe set. The one released for G.I. Joe is slightly smaller, and the arms were remolded to have them hugging the body rather than reaching outward as they are here. But still, it's interesting that an Imperial Toys dinosaur wound up in a Hasbro G.I. Joe set. I have no definitive information on how that happened, but my guess would be either timing or cost or both. Since this was a quick cash-in set, which was also a store exclusive having a limited release, Hasbro may have decided to simply borrow that mold from Imperial Toys, slightly retool it either for cost or safety purposes, and release that dinosaur with the set instead. But even though the Dino Hunters Mission playset is made up of repaints and a retooled pre-existing dinosaur, that set and all the parts from it commands premium prices on the secondary market. So even though the Dino Hunter set did jump the shark a little bit as far as G.I. Joe is concerned, it is still a highly sought after item. Now that we've already talked about Transformers and G.I. Joe, we might as well finish off the big three toy lines of the 1980s with
and the Masters of the Universe.
It's no secret that Mattel's Masters of the Universe toy line is one of the biggest action figure properties to ever exist. The weird combination of barbarian sword and sorcery with science fiction fantasy caught on with millions of kids in the early to mid 1980s. But by 1987, sales were beginning to wane for He-Man. So Mattel planned to refresh the line with a subline called The Powers of Grayskull. Unfortunately, with sales dipping, Mattel was not able to release everything they had planned for that subline. Some figures were canceled, while other figures were released only in Italy for some reason. But a few toys that did come out from the Powers of Grayskull are some of the most sought after toys from the original line, and those were the dinosaurs. The Powers of Grayskull was to explore the prehistory of Eternia, aka Preternia, and the dinosaurs were part of that history. Released in 1987 were the evil Tyrantosaurus, the good Bionatops, and the flying Turbodactyl. The dinosaurs of Preternia were seemingly all cyborgs, and each figure included a variety of weaponry and action features. Although those three dinosaurs were released, there was a fourth dinosaur planned. That would have been one of the most impressive toys in not only the Masters of the Universe toy line, but in all action figure lines of the 1980s. And that is the enormous Gigantosaurus. This huge brontosaur-type creature would have had the ability to swallow figures, which could be stored and retrieved from a door in its belly, a pop-out cannon in its chest, and judging from the photos of the prototype, it would have been huge. Ranking up there with the USS Flag and Fortress Maximus as one of the biggest toys created for an action figure line. But of course, it was never released, and the Motu toy line was cancelled soon afterward. Ever since Mattel returned to the Masters of the Universe with the Origins toy line, at the top of my list of original 80s toys that I'd love to see revisited have been the Preternian dinosaurs. Not only would I love to see new versions of Tyrantosaurus, Bionatops, and Turbodactyl, but it would be awesome if Mattel would finally release the Gigantosaurus. And I don't think that's totally outside the realm of possibility. Origins is still going, now mostly as a Mattel Creations online exclusive series. Mattel is continuing to release new versions of 80s figures and larger toys like the Fright Zone playset, as well as new characters done in that style. And at the time of this recording, they are crowdfunding the new Snake Lair playset. So I think it is possible at some point we'll see the dinosaurs. They are now dipping into that Powers of Grayskull mythology and Origins with the release of figures like Hero and Shirella, and the dinosaurs have been teased in the mini comics and on the packaging, including a tease of the unreleased Gigantosaurus. Now with the Fright Zone being recently released and the Snake Lair crowdfunding going on, I don't think we'll get any announcements for larger toys from Mattel until 2026. But I'm hoping those announcements will include the Preternian dinosaurs in some way, shape, or form. The only question is, will they be made to order? Will they be crowdfunded? And how much will they cost? That's the big question. But considering what the original three dinosaurs go for on the secondary market, I'm sure collectors would welcome Origins versions of those toys. So where do we go to next on our dinosaur journey? How about a toy line that came in hot in the late 1980s and exploded in the 1990s? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles need no introduction. Starting out as an independent black and white comic from creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles quickly became a huge multimedia franchise, covering not only comic books, but movies, television cartoons, and of course a toy line from Playmates. In the many years that Playmates has been creating toys for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, nothing has been off the table. No theme, no concept, nothing has been deemed too wacky for Turtles. There have been sports turtles, military turtles, astronaut turtles, Universal Monster Turtles, Star Trek Turtles, so it was only a matter of time before we got to Dinosaur Turtles. Between 1992 and 1994, Playmates released 6 different Cave Turtle box sets. Each of these sets reimagined the Turtles character as a cave person, paired with a wacky dinosaur. The 6 releases were Cave Turtle Leo and his dingy dino, Cave Turtle Raph with his tubular pterodactyl, Cave Turtle Mike and his silly stegosaurus, Cave Turtle Don and his trippy tyrannosaurus, Cave Beast Bebop with his bodacious brontosaurus, and Cave Woman April and her radical raptor. I believe the backstory on the box for the Cave Turtle Leo described him as the ancestor of the modern day Leo, which makes absolutely no sense, but it's turtles, so you just go with it. Later on in 1997, Playmates released a series of Dino Turtles, which were the modern day Turtles and Shredder, who had been infected with dino DNA. There was Tricera Mike, Tyranno Don, Stego Raph, Ankle Leo, and Tyranno Shredder. Dinosaurs would again appear in future iterations of the Turtles toy line, but those 1990s versions were the first. And now we'll go on to the last toy line we'll talk about in this video. And this one's probably a bit unexpected because I think it flew under the radar of a lot of collectors.
Voltron, Defender of the Universe.
Voltron, Defenders of the Universe.
In 1985, World Events Productions released the animated series Voltron, an adaptation of 2 different Japanese anime, Armored Fleet Dairugger 15, which became the Vehicle Force Voltron, and Beast King Golion, which became the Lion Force Voltron. The Lion Force Voltron was immensely more popular than the vehicle version, and so it's the Lion Voltron that has become the face of the franchise, and the subject of all 3 of its reboots. Yes, the Voltron series has been rebooted 3 times since 1985, and there's a major motion picture in the works. And that movie stars Henry Cavill. That's right, there's a Voltron movie starring Superman. These are the times we live in. Anyway, the first Voltron reboot came in 1988 with Voltron: The Third Dimension. This CGI animated series was presented as a sequel to the original 1985 series, and it had an accompanying toy line created by Trendmasters. There were some very weird decisions made with regard to this series. It started off with the classic iteration of the Lion Force Voltron, with new toys created by Trendmasters, but after the original lions were damaged, they transformed into Stealth Voltron. This toy was created by Trendmasters, and it was wildly different than the original Voltron. The Stealth Voltron lions had this weird egg shape, they were mostly black, and the combined form really did not look all that great. But this would not be the final evolution of Voltron in the series. After falling through a dimensional portal, the Stealth Voltron would be transformed into Voltrex, a Voltron made up of dinosaur robots. They dropped the Tron from the name and added T-Rex. Get it? This toy was also created by Trendmasters, and in my honest opinion, This is one of the ugliest robot toys ever made. The individual robots themselves were all vac metal and had some very weird proportions. And for some reason there was a sixth robot added as well. Not sure who piloted that one because I never watched the series. But when the dinosaurs combined into Voltrex, it is, in my opinion, one of the most hideous robot combinations I've ever seen. Why they would think that Stealth Voltron and Voltrex would be viable replacements for the classic Lion Force Voltron, I have no idea. From the information I've gathered, Voltrex would have appeared in the third season of Voltron: The Third Dimension, but the show was cancelled after only 2 seasons. The toys created by Trendmasters, despite being very unattractive, do go for a pretty penny on the secondary market. I'm not sure what the appeal is for these. Perhaps they were limited release toys and they're sought after by Voltron completists, but I definitely don't need these things in my collection. That's it for this one and my look at action figure lines that threw dinosaurs into the mix. And if you have any interest in dinosaur toys in general, then I would highly suggest checking out the latest episode of The Boba Joe Show. My friends Boba Hicks from Ireland and Johnny, a Kiwi in Australia, do a weekly video podcast where they cover a wide variety of topics, including movies, television, WWE history, and toys. And in the latest episode, they take a look at a wide range of dinosaur toys that popped up during the initial Jurassic Park craze in the 1990s. I will leave a link to that video in the description of this one. Please check it out, and if you like, please subscribe to them, because their podcasts are very entertaining. That's all for now. As always, thank you for watching, thank you for your time and attention, and I will see you in the next video.